and it's 10:30. The show is What's Going On. I'm your host, Hugo Fernandez, here at LaGuardia Web Radio, WLGR. And sorry for the little false start on my audio. We started with Woody Guthrie, Dust Bowl ballads, and which kind of ties into our show today. We're going to be talking about U.S. Department of Agriculture and the role they play in supporting farming, and this time urban farming, as opposed to in those days, which was repercussions of the Dust Bowl in the West. And my guests are Dr. Preeti Radhakrishnan, Professor of Biology, Dr. Holly Porter Morgan, Professor of Biology, and Dr. Nicole Fernandez, Professor of Nutrition and Culinary Management. And they're going to be discussing the receipt of a 4-year grant of $250,000 from the U.S. Department of Agriculture for Project Sembrad, growing and diversifying the next generation of urban agricultural STEM leaders. Welcome, professors, doctors. You want to say hi, take turns?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really great to be here, Hugo. Thanks for having us. So I'm Preeti Radhakrishnan. I am Professor of Biology in the Department of Natural Sciences. This is my 11th year here at LaGuardia, and just taught my first in-person class last week, and it was awesome to be back on campus to walk through the Hall of Flags, which is where I kind of knew, I think, that LaGuardia was going to be my place as I walked through the Hall of Flags when I came in for my interview at LaGuardia. So that's about me.
Okay, your self-starters. I told them they were going to be talking about their backgrounds and their studies, and Preeti's already moved on. Holly, you want to go next?
Sure. So I'm Holly Porter Morgan. I am in my 10th year here at LaGuardia, and I was actually brought in to run the environmental science major, the environmental science program, and just so excited to be here from day one to bring this program to LaGuardia. And my background is actually I have a master's in ethnobotany and interdisciplinary studies. And then I did a PhD in non-timber forest products and pollination ecology. I did my field work in Guatemala and Belize. So I got to hang out in the forest with jaguars and scarlet macaws and watch bugs on plants. It was a blast. And I've been missing that, with all the rain lately. So really enjoy being here and working with the more urban environment at LaGuardia.
Yeah, I'll tell you my Belize story in a minute, but I wanted to give Dr. Fernandez a chance to introduce herself. Nicole?
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. So I've been at LaGuardia for 7 years now. I'm also I'm the program director for the Nutrition and Culinary Management program, which I absolutely love being part of. But the other hat I also wear at LaGuardia is being the co-chair of the Food Insecurity, Justice and Community Need Senate Committee. Food is, a lifeline. Everyone, depends on food. So it was kind of a very easy calling for me. I love to eat, and I love to see how, it helps to nourish the bodies and the minds, because, if your tummy is not full, then, the mind is not going to function at full capacity. So, yeah, I absolutely love my time at LaGuardia. And Preeti, I share the same experience with you during my interview when I walked down the Hall of Flags, and I was delighted to find India's flag, right there when you're like crossing the buildings. And I just loved it that, we were so diverse, and the fact that students that graduate and move on always come back to LaGuardia saying, oh, we love the connection we feel at LaGuardia. It's not the same anywhere else. So absolutely share that thought and notion, and love being here.
Yeah, we hear that a lot, that they don't get the same support in other places. My Belize story is basically I went on a vacation, and we went to some groovy, hotel out in the middle of the rainforest section in the north there. And as we were walking to our cabin, it was nighttime, and I looked through the trees, and the sky was so intense that I was literally frightened. It felt like the sky was gonna fall on me. I quickly realized that I'm on this spinning globe in the middle of this space abyss. So it was frightening. But anyhow, which is why I support study abroad. You've each talked a little bit, and I want to get this right. So Preeti and Holly, you're both in natural science, but Nicole, you're with your department
Health
is which?
sciences.
It is health
Yes,
sciences. Okay, Phil Gimber's people.
that was
And it's funny, over the weekend I was trying to remember Phil's last name, and it totally spaced me. He used to be he was on my softball team,
oh, okay.
and he took on this like role, of being kind of like the whatever it is, the team doctor. Everybody would come to him, oh, I've got this shoulder, and he would give him a bunch of PD advice.
He's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of talked already about some of the things you're doing at the college. Why don't we instead talk about the genesis of the grant? All right. So how did that come about? I'm guessing that by the titles Project Sembrad, that it has something to do with our Hispanic Serving Institution status. Is this the case?
Yeah, very much so, Hugo. You know, Project Sembrar, I think, has had its roots almost in 2018. And that's where Holly and myself were kind of throwing across ideas on, along with Provost Arcario, on building a new sustainable urban agriculture track within the environmental science program. So we've been talking about it for a really long time. Kingsburg Community College has something similar, but not quite. But we wanted to have a community within Queens where we have better access to education in terms of sustainable urban ag. The USDA was a fairly easy choice because now with a new move and shift that's happening now with the Biden-Harris administration towards kind of, because they just made like a $3 billion investment into ag, animal health, nutrition. And so when that happened, I think we just jumped the gun on that. And when we saw that coming. And so that's kind of where it began. There's always been a USDA HSI, Hispanic Serving Institution type funding available. I mean, that's been on the books for a really long time, but the amount of money that's going now into urban ag has shifted with the new administration. And that's really awesome news for us because most of the funding has traditionally gone to rural education.
Why do you think the shift? Why do you think the shift is going to the urban farming?
Because I think they recognize that urban farms traditionally have been super underfunded in general. And they also recognize that there needs to be like this systemic barriers that seem to be in place in urban environments into building like a workforce that's more representative of the population. I think that's never happened. And I think that recognition is finally coming through. And so there has been a shift. And again, with climate change and food access and food inequity, as Nicole can probably talk about this in more detail with all the work she's doing, is New York is a hub, right? And with the pandemic, the food inequity has become worse. And so I think that recognition has finally happened. And hence this mission.
Do you want to talk about that, Nicole? About how that dovetails into the origins of the grant?
Sure, yes. So the USDA, as Preeti said, is highly focused on food insecurity, not just locally and nationally, but also abroad. So they have this huge global focus. And we know that, our rates in the US was about 10.5% in 2019. And because of the pandemic, it has gone up to close to 15%. In Queens, coming closer to home, it's about 10%, 9.9. But it's still rampant, and we see that every day in college. With the amount of students that are unable to either keep up with school or have to make that decision to choose, a job to pay for the bills, versus continuing their education that would actually bring them out of, that kind of a situation and having to make that decision. And so that's why, it was important to us as part of this grant to actually include a course, with curriculum that was focusing on what is insecurity, the definitions, and what are the contributing factors. and not just with like that information, but also to help them understand that while you have avenues where you can like, assist, like volunteering at like food pantries and like, trying to harness or like, redeem food, instead of it going into our landfills, those seem to be, they are useful, they have their place. They kind of are not going to solve the overall, long-term problem. And so we also need activism. We need our students to understand the justice part of it and how they can, contribute to changing, like, how policy is done in the country, because otherwise we're just going to continue to keep those brackets, where the high income stay there, the middle income, are stuck there, and then we have our low income. There's this term called the working poor. Like, people tend to assume that, oh, if you don't have enough money, you're probably not working, you don't have a job, you're lazy. That's not true. A lot of these people are hardworking people. They are working like, more than double the work hours, but they're not being paid enough to bring, that home and actually have a sustainable, decent life. And so we've got to, like, LaGuardia, our mission is to, like, encourage students to, like, be forward thinking and critical thinkers and to help to be that change, in society. And so hopefully we'll be able to harness that fire, like, so that we have students that are driven to perhaps address the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I know you were throwing out numbers, but I don't know why I think that, a third of the population in the United States, at least this was pre-pandemic, is, a third of the population is underfed. A third is obese. And then there's the third in the middle that I don't know what they're going to the gym, I guess. But the numbers are high as far as insecurity is concerned in the United States. Holly, you want to get in on this? So and talk about. I mean, you said you've been doing this. You've been working on this for 10 years. You were brought in, and by the way, I want to mention, because when Preeti was talking, Dr. Arcario is, of course, a farm. I don't know if you call him a gardener or a farmer. I know that he has this amazing property up in North, like Lynchfield or somewhere like that, where he has this amazing kind of garden. But he and I have talked, and we were talking about a rooftop garden for the E&M building until we found out that probably couldn't support the weight of whatever it would take. Like a cubic foot of earth weighs a lot, especially when it gets wet.
Yeah.
But
this program, the Sustainable Urban Agriculture Program, it's a new track within the environmental science major. And, it sounded like you were wondering a little bit, what's the collaboration here? We're in different departments, but as Nicole said so eloquently, food insecurity it crosses all boundaries, right? It's all of our students, it's all of our programs, it's our academic programs, it's our non-academic programs, it's all of our students, right? So, it makes sense that we all come together in this, and our department in natural sciences, we work together with all of the different departments and, classes in environmental science. Our students take classes from all of the other departments as well, right? So, Nicole is actually developing, is kind of redeveloping, I guess, right, Nicole, her fantastic course, Food and Culture, for this track. So the students, it will be even more focused on sustainable urban agriculture. And then we've also developed a number of new courses in collaboration with the USDA. We're working with Joseph Heller, who's a urban agriculturalist, with the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service. And then we're also working with Olga Vargas, who's a soil scientist there. And we'll be offering courses such as People and Plants. So students, and this is for any student, but specifically also the students in this new track will have to take this as part of their courses in the track. They'll get to learn about all the cool plants in the area. And they'll also get to take the world beneath our feet. So learning more about the soil and what lives in the soil, and testing the soil at a community garden versus the dirt, non-living stuff that might be just, along a roadway somewhere. So, and then we also have classes that are just in sustainable urban agriculture. And so those students will go out and they'll learn techniques in irrigation and propagation and storage and handling of the fruits and vegetables that they grow. So there's a lot of really great new courses that we're bringing to the college.
So again, you got ahead of me because now you're talking about outcomes, and we haven't even talked about that. So again, you mentioned we have two different departments working together. How did all the three of you come together to write this? Was this because it was something sent out by the folks in the development office, or the grants office? I mean, it probably precedes Laura Bardovik's move into that role, overseeing all development.
I'll let Preeti take that. I just got excited about it. Sorry.
Okay. You're right onto the outcome. By the way, you mentioned this. You guys interact with Chris McHale from the library, who's got that urban garden down on Skillman. Because when you started talking about that, I started thinking about that. But go ahead, Preeti. So,
how do we get started?
So the writing of the grant, coming together to write this grant.
Yeah. So the USDA was always at the back of my mind, and the reason why is because I feel it's really unfair that students in our community don't have access to these kind of federal jobs that the USDA has. And that's a big deal because federal jobs have great benefits. The medical insurance that comes with it, the salary itself, the starting salary itself is quite good. And I think the problem there is because the advertising that the USDA does in urban communities is not great. And I think that's why we got funded this time, because we are the only community college in this round. So there were close to 100 applications, and we were the only community college that was funded across the United States. And that's a big deal. How we came together is I originally was thinking about the USDA grant. We're trying to figure out because there's the Hispanic Serving Institutions component. I was like, we really need to apply to this. We have an urban ag program coming up. So obviously I reached out to Holly. She's the program director and she's like a superstar. So I was like, let's get on this. We spoke with Provost Arcario. He was like, yeah, you guys should go for it. We got John Parsinanen from the grants office on. I've worked with John in the past and he's just brilliant. And so we applied in 2019 and we actually got denied. But we got fantastic feedback. We scored in like the second to lowest category in 2019, but we got great feedback. And John and I just sat together and we went through the entire application again and we revised it based on the feedback and we reapplied. And I think at that point, one of the suggestions we got from our reviewers was you need to really beef up your food component. And that's when we brought Nicole on board. And that was like the best decision ever because Nicole's like totally changed our conversation around how we want this grant to work. And it's been amazing since.
So do you see this grant as predominantly a jobs, like creating a jobs program? Or do you see this as, an education of our community as to how to utilize its resources and also address this problem of food insecurity? I'm wondering because I ran an after-school program in the Bronx years ago, and probably 15, 20 years ago. And, one of my goals was to grow food, have children growing food in the schools, foods that they would typically not eat, because the data shows that if a kid grows something, they're more likely to try it. Especially if you show them how to cook it properly, instead of like that boiled stuff in the cafeteria where they kill the broccoli or they kill whatever it is that they're cooking. What was the primary, or is this a multi-pronged grant application?
It really is. Yeah, we designed it to be all of those things that you just described. Ideally, like if you were to say 4 or 5 years into the future, that's exactly what we would want to be doing, which is have students grow food in our backyard in Long Island City in raised beds And Holly will talk to you about, the land that we have behind the C building, right, Holly? And
Yeah.
Now, are we talking about the land that's part of the block that currently now has like whatever they're called, benches? Or are you talking about the other side where there's a community garden?
So
Holly can.
directly across from the community garden. So you've got 47th Avenue. So between 29th Street and 30th Street, right behind the C building, there is a space that's been slated to have a garden. We're just working with the administration to make sure that it's usable for the students. Right. There's a loading dock right next to it, and we're just working that out right now. And that it has been kind of set aside as an area. There's trees, there's some beautiful architectural pieces that came off of the C building facade, I believe. Maybe some of the other buildings when they were renovated, they're actually beautiful. And they can students can kind of hang out on them and lay around. And then the other portion of it would be an area for gardens for classes, for this new track and for food and nutrition, and then maybe some beds for extracurricular activities. That's the goal. That my understanding of the goal from the college.
All right, because I remember, I think that Shahir Irfan, VP of Administration, had been approached by the community to turn that into a community garden, and there was a concern that God knows what happens once, if you put it, you open it up.
My understanding is they're not going to open it up, like leave it completely open at all times, because there's liability for the college. But during college hours, that it would be, I'm sorry, Shahir, if I'm mischaracterizing, but that it will be open for the college community, and it will be open when the college is open.
Yeah, I didn't mean open up,
Yes.
like the gate open. I'm talking about open as, it's like once you start bringing in a bunch of folks, again, the politics of community gardens is complex.
It is, unfortunately. The great thing is that a lot of people don't realize we have a community garden right across the street from there. So we'll have a fantastic garden for the college, and we'll be working closely with a community garden, LIC Roots, that's directly across the street with it, right? So linking those two up and working together with our community garden that's right across the street is going to grow us by leaps and bounds as well.
Right. And Nicole, so the nutrition and culinary management.
I was going to say, so we have a commercial kitchen. And so, based on what is produced, I've already offered that, we can actually bring students in and we can show them how to prepare foods, following the food safety guidelines and actually taste and, all of that. So, yes.
And how do you determine what you're going to grow? Because, I mean, again, it's a Hispanic serving institution. Does this mean we're going to be growing, yucca?
Yeah.
And I don't know what you can grow in this climate. I have to drive. Literally, I have to drive. I don't know how many miles to find where I live in Connecticut to find like a genuine Latin grocery store, and like everything that's there. Again, think about the impact, the carbon footprint. That God knows where this stuff is coming from. Florida at best.
It would be fabulous to have the students helping us decide what gets grown, and to maybe have different beds representing different, have a hall of flags in our planting beds, right?
Yes.
Well, that could be, and again, I think, but it comes down to climate. Unless you're thinking in terms of, for example. What's it called? Where you've got the glass all around it, the greenhouse.
The greenhouse, yeah.
Are you thinking greenhouses?
We'd love to have greenhouses, yeah. And I'd like to jump in here because, Provost Arcario has been very clear with us that this first couple of years is going to be purely research, because there is a cement factory rather, right across from us. And there's a lot of, so what we're doing right now is trying to get air quality monitors up to try and figure out what the PM levels are in terms of, because we don't want students there exposed to any of this. They will be wearing masks, but right,
PM.
it's a designated
Particulate matter.
site.
Excuse me? Poisonous
Particulate
matter, is that
matter.
what you said?
Particulate matter.
Particulate matter.
Particulate.
So heavy matter flying in the air.
That's right.
And I think one of, it's 10:58, so I'm going to just use this as an opportunity to take a quick station break. The show is What's Going On. I'm your host, Hugo Fernandez, here on LaGuardia Web Radio, WLGR. And my guests today are Dr. Preeti Radhakrishnan, Professor of Biology, Dr. Holly Porter Morgan, Professor of Biology, and Dr. Nicole Fernandez, Professor of Nutrition and Culinary Management, to discuss the receipt of a 4-year grant of $250,000 from the U.S. Department of Agriculture for Project Sembrad, growing and diversifying the next generation of urban agriculture STEM leaders. Anyhow, what I was going to say, it's interesting because, Nicole, when I saw your surname, I said, oh, there's a Hispanic involved with this. Because all these HSI grants, I'm always saying, where's the Hispanic faculty in these? But could somebody tell me what Sembrad stands for besides just grow or no plant? Sembrad means to plant.
There's actually a history here, Hugo. So when we were thinking of the name, that's exactly what you described was exactly what came to mind, right? None of us are Hispanic, and we want to come up with a name that is true to Hispanic culture, and we're not like butchering something. So we actually called on Olga Calderon and Janet Gonzalez. So kudos to them. We had like a really long conversation with them, almost an hour and a half, where we had like this jam board. We threw up all these names, and they were the ones who came up with the name Project Sembrar, and it means to plant or to grow. So we did talk to our Hispanic faculty, and they are actually involved with our grant. They're not co-PIs, but they are involved with the grant.
So the SMBRAR is not, like some sort of whatever you call it, abbreviation.
It's not an abbreviation. It just means to plant or grow.
And the idea is that it has that double meaning, of course, right? So it has that double meaning of both the idea that we're planting or growing literally plants, but also our students. It is a pipeline from our high schools, and we are working with college now. We're working with local high schools such as John Bone, the agricultural high school. We're bringing students from high schools. We're bringing them into LaGuardia, and then we're working with them to go on to 4-year colleges. We have articulations in the works for with Brooklyn College with our new track, and then also we're working with the USDA on placements for internships, potential jobs, things like that. So it's not just growing the plants, but it's also growing the students, and helping students recognize that these are jobs that a lot of people haven't thought of.
Right, because again, you precede me in your thinking, but it's not fine. Sometimes I wonder why I'm here. But I was going to say you got $250,000, but you got to split that over 4 years. So, and I know, it's like everything. It's like the strategic plan of the college. Basically look at the college's budget, and that really tells you what the strategic plan is, right? So again, what do you do with $250,000 over 4 years, which is what, 100? So maybe 62.5 a year, right? What do you do with that?
So majority of the money, Hugo, is going to go to the students directly, and I think that's also one of the reasons why this was funded. So one of the coolest parts of this grant is what we're calling the SELP program, the Project Sembrar Experiential Learning Program. And what that is it's a 3-week intensive that students do in the summer. And when I say students, it's mainly for our environmental science students, but we're in this first year, we're going to open it up. Of course, we're going to have our nutrition and culinary management, but we're also going to open it up to the entire college to get an idea of students who might have interest in food sciences to apply. So it's an application-based thing, but we're paying students a stipend to do the 2-week program. So it's like $1,500 for the 2 to 3 weeks. But we're also paying our community partners. So when we pay our community partners within those 2 weeks, and we have 5 different community partners, they are going to be holding workshops. And when I say workshops, it's not just, it's not just lecture based, but it's hands-on learning where, for example, and I can talk to you about the community partners. I don't want to jump the gun.
Yeah, I was going to say, no, you can't. I was going to, because the next question would be like, who are they?
Yeah, so we have some pretty awesome community partners. We were talking before about ancient grains, right? So when it comes to Hispanic food, yuca always comes to mind, but there's a whole bunch of ancient grains which have been lost. And so we're working with someone from Reclaim Seed. Her name is Jacqueline Pilati. And she's just she's the founder and teacher at reclaimseed.nyc. And that's kind of her job, where she kind of harvests these ancient grains and enables them to kind of repopulate the environment. And so she'll be working with us in designing this curriculum around the experiential learning piece. So that's one collaborator that we're working with. The other is Oko Urban Farms. So Oko is actually an aquaponics farm. It's an education company that's based in Brooklyn. So they now have a new piece of land in Williamsburg, right near the piers. So it's sort of like a really beautiful location. But students are going to be learning aquaponics, talking about the nitrogen cycle. They're going to be designing their own hardware and making their own aquaponics setup to then bring back to LaGuardia. So it's all very exciting.
If I can add, Preeti, at this point. So, Hugo, you asked us, how did we all come together, right? So this aquaponics is what brought me to the ground. So pre-pandemic, I had scheduled a meeting with Provost Arcario, telling him that I would love to, develop the system at our LaGuardia campus. And at that point, we were still talking about, the soil and the possible, vegetable garden behind the C building. And so he said, hold that thought, put it on hold. I really want to get this running first, and we'll talk about that later. And I said, okay, fair enough. And, I went home, and that was it. Then the pandemic happened. And then Preeti reached out saying, Provost Arcario, remembered you and told me to connect with you because you wanted to do this. And so for me, it was like, amen, I wanted to do it. And Preeti actually through this grant is giving me an opportunity to do exactly that. So that's how I believe I was connected. So thank you, Provost Arcario, for remembering me and connecting us.
He's a connector. That's what he does. Hugo, do you know what aquaponics is?
Well, I was going to say hydroponics is the way that I remember it, but I don't know. Maybe this is
right.
Maybe it's slightly different. Maybe like it's completely immersed in the water as opposed to like kelp farming.
So Polly can talk about hydroponics, but in aquaponics is basically cultivating freshwater fish and vegetables together. So it's like a combination. There's a hydroponics
symbiosis, yes.
There. But the whole point of it is you're saving water. So it's like really, really popular in third world countries where there is a water shortage. So you're cultivating freshwater fish. They actually give out a whole bunch of nitrogens, which are essential for the plants to survive in. And so then the plants that you grow tend to be plants that thrive in that kind of environment. So it's this really nice symbiotic type relationship.
Hugo, the fish are adding their feces to the system.
I was going to say, and I know, and it's interesting because, for example, like salmon farming is really detrimental in, when we were in Chile, because you've got all of this feces going into a very concentrated area, and all that nitrogen, is killing all because of the intensity of it. So finding a way to take advantage of that as positive for growth would be something.
Exactly. Yeah. They do it a lot with tilapia as well.
Oh, really?
And then some of the fish can be taken out and used, eaten. Yeah. So you can do it as a closed system. You can do it as a system where you take some of the fish out. There's a lot of ways to do it. Yeah. So it's fantastic.
Is talking about another tie-in, the President's Society Environmental Group that Ryan Hamilton, Dr. Hamilton is involved with. Are they going to be mixed up in any of this?
So yeah, so so Ryan Hamilton, myself, and Joby Jacob are co-directors of the Present Society Environment program. And so one of the groups that would be utilizing the sea building planting beds and actually helping build them would be the Present Society Environment. That is actually one of the goals that we have for this year in the spring, is to help actually build those is to actually build the planting beds that would be, that would be used by everyone else.
Yeah, and people maybe who aren't, don't know about community gardens, but the beauty part of the raised beds is this issue of the soil, right? Which is, here we are in a post-industrial, though actually a living industrial community, right? Because like you said, cement plants, and we've got the highways that come by. We're right by the 59th Street Bridge, and that all of the pollutants, whatever, get into the soil. I mean, if we were to test our soil, we'd probably find heavy metals, things like that in them. But if with a raised bed, you just bring in fresh soil. I'm wondering, when I was in the Bronx, we worked with Bronx Green Up. I don't know if you're working with Queens Green Up, because they many times can even push in things like, wood, soil. I used to get my whatever it was called, my wood chips from local tree folks. I mean, is some of that happening as well, or is this coming out of the $250,000?
No. So we're working with Grow NYC, which has like a big, their roots grow deep into Queens and Brooklyn. I haven't heard of, what was that you said again, Hugo?
Well, I worked with Bronx Green Up because my community garden was in the Bronx, and they're very supportive once they know you're legit.
Yeah.
Then they push in a lot of resources.
That's awesome.
In the beginning.
That's good to know. We're working with Grow NYC, not really for their resources, but they're one of our collaborators on the experiential learning program. So the other guys that we're working with is City Growers, which is Grow NYC. So if you've been to the Brooklyn Grange rooftop farms, if you've been to the Sunnyside farms there, those are the farms that Grow NYC and City Growers work with. They're amazing. If you've never been, I highly recommend a trip out there. We're also working with Kingsland Wildflowers, the Newtown Creek Alliance, the Queens Community House. So all of these other collaborators are working with us in engaging students in the experiential learning program.
And then all of the resources that the USDA brings in, the USDA is linking us up with a number of other local programs that aren't our official collaborators that we named in the grant. But as we move forward, the USDA will be bringing in panelists to talk with the students, lots of different resources that is a big part of having a USDA grant, and we're really grateful for that.
And Nicole, I was going to say, so we're growing the food, and we're throwing in some fish on top of it, right? And you're cooking it in your state-of-the-art kitchens, right? Who's going to eat it? Who gets to eat that food? Who gets it?
Obviously, the whole group that has put in the energy and the effort to see it through. So definitely the students, and the faculty, and if we grow enough, why not invite the community, right, Preeti and Holly?
Again, this is going to be way in the future. I hear Paul in my head.
I know, saying not yet until we get that cement factory thing sorted out.
Yeah. Finger going, not yet. But we want to make sure that the food is grown well and that it's safe to eat and safe to consume. But yes, I would love to have some sort of a LaGuardia farm to table event. At some point where, straight from where it's grown. And you're right, Hugo, there's something special about my kids who are in kindergarten. I have one kindergartner, and they have a plot of land in their elementary school. He started off, he liked vegetables, but not as much as in this last year. He's now eating radishes straight off of the ground. He'll pull it out of the ground, wash it, and just munch on it, and that's something that I never expect. Things like radish and bell peppers and broccoli, he eats them raw because he's seen where it comes from. He grew it himself. And he's able to do that.
And
Right.
you know, we know this. There are, I forget what they're called, but you know, zones where you can't find fresh vegetables.
Right.
You know what I
Food
mean?
desert.
Doesn't.
Food desert.
Food
Yep.
deserts, and our students grow up with no
Yep.
relationship to
That's right.
nutritious food. You know, they're like living on fast food. And so, this is also a goal, which is to like remember the food pyramid.
Yes.
Remember the USDA
That's
food
been
pyramid.
replaced by the My Plate, but
And
you're right. The pyramid kind of shows you
well, now there's a different thing now.
There's
It's
a
like a My
yes,
thing
Plate,
now is a
My
yeah.
Plate.
but it's still chopped up right into like triangles or something.
Veggies, yes, yes,
So you how much
yes.
veggies, how much fruit, and or how much protein. I mean, most Americans, of course, we eat a lot of meat.
We do.
We're not, and then realizing that that's
The
unsustainable.
cost on
I
the
mean, is this
environment.
also a
Yes.
is this also a discussion, which is the sustainability of the way we as Americans eat, and the impact of again non-local foods, the carbon footprint when we're flying in grapes from
Yeah.
Chile, right? And I got nothing against, I love Chile. I've been to Chile a couple of times, and I love red seedless grapes, but
Let's fly in the wine, not the grapes.
is that more efficient?
Yeah.
Why don't we just have a pipeline?
Added value. Added
You
value.
know, I keep saying we need to have like a food microbiology course where we're sending our students to like the beer gardens and the wineries to test. Wouldn't that be amazing? I don't know. I think it would be fantastic.
So when I came
We're
to
gonna do-
LaGuardia, I asked about it. Preeti, apparently there used to be one, and our students in the dietetics program used to actually take that because it was a requirement. So there is some history where we've had a class that perhaps.
And that's changing. That landscape
Mhm.
of food microbiology is changing so dramatically, especially now with all of the microbreweries across our neighborhoods in Queens. That's changing. And that would be a fantastic job market to kind of tap into.
Absolutely.
All right, but we're not going to be growing hops
Not
Right.
growing hops.
or whatever. We need Joby here. Joby's
Yeah.
the
Mushrooms.
beer
maybe.
We
meister.
will talk about it, and we'll talk about how beer and chocolate and wine get made in the people and plants class, though, because there's a lot of ethnobotany in there. Fun stuff.
So this is a whole new major.
It's
right?
a whole new track.
There's
It's a
whole new
track
thing.
within environmental science. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, we're at the last quarter hour, so we've got about 10 minutes. I have no questions on the stream chat, so let's talk about the future. Though it's kind of funny because you're in the fledgling stages of this grant, and there has been some discussion of the future. But obviously, most of these grants talk about sustainability, right? They talk about what happens after the money runs out. I don't know if it's something that you can apply for again, and what's the thinking about sustainability after the first $250,000?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that Holly, Nicole, and myself have been thinking out loud about, and even thinking with the grants office about. We definitely want to reapply for a bigger USDA grant. One of the interesting things with the USDA grants, and I think this is also useful for other faculty from across CUNY who might be interested in applying for something like this, is once you get a USDA grant, the odds of you getting another to kind of sustain the work you're doing is pretty high. So
Oh, really?
yeah, that's what we were told, at least at the grant application seminars that we've been to. NEFA, like I was saying before, NEFA stands for what does it stand for exactly? NEFA, I'm trying to say National
Institute of Federal Agriculture.
Food and Food Administration. They sent out a call saying, again, there's $3 billion that's going into everything that we just talked about with a focus on urban ag. So the money's there. I think we need to expand our little circle. I keep talking to Holly and Nicole about this. We need to talk to more faculty on campus, see who else is interested, try and get like a really good interdisciplinary team together. I'd love to have Ryan Mann Hamilton join us. I've met him.
Right, that's social science.
Yeah, social sciences would be great, and make like a different team with a spin perhaps towards food insecurities and food deserts, and how we can kind of satisfy that need. Holly can talk about the infrastructure that we need, right? We need green infrastructure, and that's something we need money for. Holly, you want to jump in?
Yeah, so that's just the other piece, and we've kind of mentioned this, is that we want to build more green infrastructure in the area near the school. So that's one of the things that Present Society Environment has been working on, and you may remember the survey that we sent around last year, is that we've been working on designing a an idea for greening the streets around the campus. So that would be 29th Street, the northern part of 29th Street, and maybe the top portion of 29th Street South, but definitely the northern part of 29th Street. So that would be the area between our parking lot and the C building. And eventually, hopefully, getting that demapped. So it's just a green street, a plaza, for use for, there would be pollinator gardens there, and an area for students to hang out. Go ahead.
No, I think music, if we can have some
Music.
sort of performances, like a performance stage, that would be great.
Yeah, and the students in Present Society Environment have gone through and made diagrams and kind of architectural type drawings and looked at what could we have here, what types of things. They did a whole top 10 list of what they'd like to see there. And then, they're going to keep developing that this year and then take it out to the rest of the campus and get other students interested too. And they'll be sending out a survey to all students on the campus to get them to respond and find out what they're interested in. And a petition.
Yeah, I was going to just say, if you think about areas to bring in, I'm thinking about my humanities art folk, but also, the industrial design, Arthur Paul O'Keefe, who, I'm constantly getting LinkedIn messages from one of the faculty there, Gretel, who, they're always coming up with new ways to build things. And so tie them in.
Two art things that the students came up with for that area. This is just ideas from PSE, right? One was they wanted to include a walking labyrinth. They wanted to include a stage. They wanted to include a walking labyrinth on the stage, so when it wasn't being used, it could be used by people just passing by. And they wanted somewhere along there to have some kind of a mural that could every year be replaced by art students. And we all thought that was fabulous.
That sounds like, with the labyrinth, it sounds like Nancy Bandieres. And with the mural, I would think Ariane Fernandez or someone, or Leanna Weisman. We're thinking in terms of that. So
that sounds like a dream team, dream interdisciplinary team.
Yeah.
Tie it all in. I just want, and I don't know, you're scientists, right? But, and so I don't know what you do. I mean, I live in a deciduous forest. I spend most of my time chopping wood or, blowing leaves. Not right now, I'm blowing leaves. I try not to mow if I can help it, but I may have to. But, I think that's another thing for our students. Don't
get rid of all of your leaves because your pollinators.
No, I don't. I blow them in. I just blow them. I actually blow them into like the property around, just like into the rocks and stuff like that. We're actually reclaiming a part of the lawn, or an area where we're trying to create like lawn. We're trying to claim land by whatever it's called, composting and stuff like that. But I'm a city boy. I grew up mostly in urban areas, but there's something amazing about being out here. The air is so fresh and all that stuff. And that's something our students also don't get any, I think of the philosophers here, where Sherry Carr we were talking about taking over the 9th floor, creating, a kind of an agora of sorts where people can have contemplation as well. But I'll be interested to see, because when I try to take teenagers out into my community garden in the summer to help me keep it up, it was amazing how many people had asthma. So this is another thing, which is you're not used to working in like that. It's that's another.
The more time we spend in natural places, the more our bodies get used to it too. That's the other.
No, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was turning compost, and I didn't think I could do it. And before you know it, you do, it became a thing.
Yeah.
Will there be any of that going on, by the way? Any
Right.
composting?
That
Because I'd like a piece of that. Get out there. I'll bring in my pitchfork and turn it over.
definitely that's a goal. I think starting out, where the plan is to work with our local community gardens, and the one that you mentioned before, Smiling Hogs Head Ranch, is within walking distance, very, very close by. And they have a fantastic composting program. So with something that close that has a nice big area for composting, that is a great place to take students and teach them about composting. And we don't have to use any of our own space to start out. We can collect our composting, and then they have windrows and everything there, right up on the abandoned railway tracks. So we can kind of take the things there, and they can kind of see everything without taking up any space for windrows in our area, right? Windrows, where you rows of compost, windrows.
Okay.
But that is, it would be great if we had enough room to do that ourselves, maybe on a roof or something. But that is a future idea. But we certainly want the students to learn about composting. That is actually one of the things that they'll be talking about in soil science.
We're out of time.
Okay.
So I wanted to give you an opportunity. Any last words, that any thank yous or anything you failed to mention? And we could start with Nicole.
Sure. So as I said before, I'm so excited to be able to start the aquaponics on campus, and of course my all-time calling, which is like food insecurity, getting the word around and trying to help students think about it and find ways to address it. And so I have the pleasure of working with the two best people, Preeti and Holly, and of course everyone else that this grant has been inclusive of so many, and so it's just a pleasure to be a part of it.
And I feel the same way. I mean, I feel like this is just a dream team. I love working with these ladies. We are so lucky to have such a great group of faculty at LaGuardia that support each other and love working on these fantastic things that work especially for our students together.
Preeti?
Yeah, I think Holly and Nicole did a good job there, but I think I'd want to give a shout out to our staff who are working super hard on this project with us. I don't think we could do any of it without them. So there's Marisol Lisboa from College Now. There's Charis Victory from our ASAP STEM. There's Patricia Zherbensky, who is our John Bown High School partner. I'm sure there are people I'm missing out, and John Parsinen, who helped us with the grants office, Joseph Heller from the USDA, all of our amazing collaborators, our community partners. I think that's the one thing I think LaGuardia, and this came out of our Middle States evaluation as well, for Standard 1, which I was co-chairing, is I think we need as a college, I think we need to do a better job at involving our community and getting them represented within our education platforms, as well as research in the classroom, as Holly's been doing with Newtown Creek Alliance and Sarah Durand. And I think this is a great way to get that going. And so I'm very excited to start our first experiential learning program this summer.
Yeah, I was going to
one college. That's all.
Yeah, and it's funny because one thing I didn't mention when you were talking about the USDA, I don't know if it's part of your grant. You got to go to Washington. When we got an NEH grant, we did, and they're in this one building with three other institutions, and the cafeteria was amazing, good healthy food, and it was subsidized, so you didn't have to go out of pocket too much to eat. And the other thing I was going to say is when I go to Cuba, and people always ask me, they say, where do I eat in Havana? I say, leave, because the people who grow their food eat and serve a lot better food than what's happening in the city. And obviously that's something that we experience as well, and we need to change. But I just want to thank you all for being here today on the show. My guests today have been Dr. Preeti Radhakrishnan, professor of biology, Dr. Holly Porter Morgan, Professor of Biology, and Dr. Nicole Fernandez, Professor of Nutrition and Culinary Management. And they've been on to discuss the receipt of a 4-year grant of $250,000 from the U.S. Department of Agriculture for Project Sembrad, growing and diversifying the next generation of urban agricultural STEM leaders. Thank you for being on our show. And Mr. Pope, our engineer, please take us out as we came in with a little Woody Guthrie, played by Arlo at Farm Aid. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Hugo.
Thank you.